Hello, everyone. Thank you for taking the time to view this presentation. My name is Carolyn Reed Westerby, and today I'll be talking to you about the predictors of children's special educational needs in grade 3. I am unfortunately unable to attend IPDLN this year, so my colleague Molly Pottruff has kindly agreed to attend in my place. So before I begin, I just wanted to note that we have no affiliation, financial or otherwise, with a pharmaceutical, medical device, or communications organization. To start, let me just give you a little bit of background. So children with special educational needs, which refers to children who have challenges that might impact their learning, while they often struggle academically. And if students are not identified in a timely manner, the negative academic outcomes can eventually have long-term impacts. Previous studies have found that children's abilities in kindergarten are predictive of their future special educational needs status, but it's currently unknown whether these predictors differ in children with and without an early identification of special needs in kindergarten. So the goal of the current study was to investigate early predictors of special educational needs in grade 3 in a cohort of children with and without special needs in kindergarten in the province of Ontario, Canada. So we linked data collected in kindergarten using the Early Development Instrument, which is a teacher-completed population-level measure of children's developmental health at school entry, to educational achievement data collected by the Education Quality and Assessment Office, or EQAO for short. So individual level data, which were collected in publicly funded schools, were matched using a deterministic approach, where a successful match was reached only if the following variables matched for each child. So their sex, their date of birth, their residential postal code, and their school name. So this resulted in a sample size of 64,666 kids, of which 1,824 were identified with the special needs in kindergarten. Just to let you know, special needs in kindergarten was identified as needing special assistance in the classroom due to a chronic medical, physical, or mental disabling condition. Also, just to let you know, it is possible for children identified with special needs in kindergarten to not have a special needs later on. It depends on a variety of factors. But just because you're identified in kindergarten does not mean you'll necessarily continue on with that designation later on. So for this study, we used two measures, the Early Development Instrument, or EDI, and the EQAO Provincial Standardized Tests in grade 3. So 5 variables from the EDI were used as predictors of special educational needs in grade 3. These variables were whether a child was vulnerable on one or two or more domains, whether they were identified as being multiply challenged based on the multiple challenge index, whether they had any functional needs or impairments, and whether their teacher indicated that they needed further assessment. Our outcome variable was whether or not a child was identified with special educational needs in grade 3. Now, there are many different ways or many different things that EQAO collects. One of these information is whether or not a child has an individualized education plan, whether they've been identified as having an exceptionality in one of 5 different categories. So that would be behavioral, communicational, intellectual, physical, or even multiple. Or whether they've received any type of accommodation during the EQAO test. So for our variable of special educational needs, if a child had any one of these, they were considered to have a special educational need in grade 3. Now, before moving on to results, I just wanted to take a minute or two to explain the predictor variables we used. Vulnerability on one or more and 2 or more domains is calculated based on the mean scores in each of the 5 developmental domains of the EDI. Scores from a baseline collection are used to create cutoff scores, and these cutoff scores are used to divide children into 3 different categories: vulnerable, at risk, and on track. So if a child falls below the 10th percentile distribution cutoff for a given domain, that child is considered to be vulnerable in that area. Children who were multiply challenged, that determination is based on the multiple challenge index, which is a dichotomous variable, and based on scores on the children's EDI subdomains. So there are 16 subdomains. Children can be classified as meeting all or almost all the expectations, meeting some, or meeting few or none of the expectations in a given area. Children who meet few or none of the expectations on 9 of the 16 subdomains are classified as being multiply challenged. Children have a functional impairment if their teacher indicated that they had difficulties that impacted their ability to participate in classroom activities. Teachers could choose from a list of 9 different impairments, which ranged from physical impairments to emotional and behavioral ones. Finally, teachers were asked to indicate whether they felt a child needed further assessment. So we'll now take a look at the results. So we first compared some descriptive characteristics between children with and without special needs in kindergarten. And as you can see from this table, there was a greater percentage of kids with special needs in kindergarten who were male and had English or French as a second language. There are also a greater percentage of kids with special needs who are also vulnerable on 1 or more domains, who were multiply challenged, who had functional impairments, who needed further assessment, and who also had special educational needs in grade 3, compared to kids without special needs in kindergarten. So following this, we ran a multivariate binary logistic regression where we controlled for child's sex and whether they had English or French as a second language. And we examined the association between the kindergarten predictors and special educational needs status in grade 3. Our analysis revealed that for children with special needs in kindergarten, so the yellow lines, having a functional impairment was the most significant predictor or the strongest predictor of having a special educational need in grade 3. For children without special needs in kindergarten, so the blue lines, teachers reporting the need for further assessment was the strongest predictor of having a special educational need in grade 3. In conclusion, our study revealed that early predictors of special educational needs in grade 3 differ for children who receive an early identification, so that's special needs designation in kindergarten compared to those who don't. So how children with special needs function in a kindergarten classroom is the best predictor of special educational needs in grade 3, whereas teachers' observation that a child needs further assessment is the strongest predictor of special educational needs in grade 3 for children without special needs in kindergarten. So addressing these areas early on may help reduce the number of children with special educational needs in later grades and may have a positive impact on their future academic success. At this point, I would like to thank you all for viewing our presentation, and I'd like to invite you to please contact us if you have any questions, if you'd like to discuss anything that you've heard today. Here's our general email address, our website, and our Twitter handle. So thank you very much and enjoy the rest of the presentation at this conference.